All right, everyone. Welcome to Titan Zone episode 2. I'm going to be recapping the week 4 matchup against the Jets. I'm also going to be talking about week 5 with the Jags coming up this week. And we're going to talk about some of the struggles that the Tennessee Titans have been going on with. What I think is some improvements that they're doing, and what I feel like is their Achilles heel, so to speak. Hopefully you guys will start liking it. I'll start getting some more views and more sub count. I know it takes a little bit on here, a lot of hard work, and I guess it will start the show eventually. But let's get into the week 4. Um, I said in my last Titan Zone video that I didn't want them to overlook the Jets. I'm not saying that they overlooked the Jets. I mean, they went into the game without A.J. Brown and without Julio Jones. They went out there with their their two elite receivers. So they went in there without them. I also figured out that they were going to be going in there with a really big struggle, and their offensive line has been wishy-washy all season long. Since all 4 weeks, they've been wishy-washy. Now, the last 3 games, Derrick Henry has had over 100 yards. So the offensive line is doing good on the run block, but they are not doing very well in the pass block. I thought they did well week 3 with the pass block, but you know, the Jets got 7 sacks on Ryan Tannehill. And it's not just the O-line's fault. I feel like Ryan Tannehill is holding on to the ball just a little bit too long, especially when the rush is coming at him. He's holding on to the ball too long. The last 2 years, though, Ryan Tannehill was able to get the ball out quicker. I don't know if it's some bad part on Tannehill's part, or if it's the offensive coordinator that they have now, or if it's the offensive line per se. But I noticed that Tannehill is not really getting the ball out as quickly as he should be. And McNichols, the backup running back, had a pretty good. He led the team in receiving against the Jets. And I know we signed that 1-year deal with Josh Reynolds. I'm not really impressed. I'm not sold on Josh Reynolds. I mean, maybe that's the reason why he was a third, fourth string wide receiver for the Rams. I'm not sold on him quite a bit. Derrick Henry had 36 carries against the Jets for 100 plus yards with a touchdown. Now, I feel like you're asking too much for Derrick Henry. I mean, I know that he's a beast. He's really, but teams are starting to figure out Derrick Henry. I noticed that the tackling has been a lot better on Derrick Henry these last 4 weeks than it's ever been. Like, I've noticed that Derrick Henry's they're going at him at the legs, and Derrick Henry's a brick, top and bottom, but they're going at him and they're tripping him up on his ankles. When he gets that little burst going, they stop him before he's able to do anything. So, but the one thing I have noticed that Derrick Henry has brought to his game, and it came out a little bit last year, but I'm starting to notice it more this year. His catching, his receiving has been really good. And he's become like that little weapon that you can use in the pass game as well to get him going. Why I'm sitting there thinking in the Jets game, you had an opportunity Derrick Henry wasn't even used in that last drive where the Titans missed a field goal and lost the game against the Jets. He wasn't even used in that last drive, and why Derrick Henry wasn't used in that last drive is beyond me. I mean, he's your star. He's the main guy. He's your focal point. You don't have Julio. You don't have AJ at this point. Fisker is dropping passes, not really picking up like he's supposed to be. Josh Reynolds isn't really that third receiver that you wanted. So what do? You go to the man who's brought you to the dance. You got to go with Derrick Henry. And at that point, when you depend on a run, when you depend on your kicking game, and we all know the Titans' kicking woes the last couple of years have been ferocious. It's been non-essential. I mean, Bullock did hit 3 field goals, and that's the problem right there in this game. The Jets had a pretty good defense. They also have a really good red zone defense. So, but the fact that you went straight 3 shots and you had 3 field goals. So you're up 9-0. And the Titans defense was doing a pretty good job there in the beginning. Christian Fulton got that interception. Fulton's been playing lights out. I actually am impressed with Fulton. With them drafting him last year, I knew he was going to be a steal. So he's done his job. Harold Landry has done his job as a Tennessee Titan when he got drafted. Harold Landry has been money since he seems to be the only one on defense doing anything. And Jeffrey Simmons, we all know that he can sometimes. I love Jeffrey Simmons, baby Thanos. I love him, but he's got this little hot cold situation when he plays. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's off. But we need Jeffrey Simmons to be on. And we were without Bud Dupree, and I know that we gave him a pretty big contract in the offseason to come here. I know he's kind of healing from that torn ACL. You have an investment in Bud Dupree, and I understand that you don't want to press him, you don't want to push him, but I'm also thinking you sign him to a big fat contract, and so far he ain't produced nothing. I mean, I don't know if he was from the system of Pittsburgh and the fact that he had TJ Watt on the other side of him that he was able to get those sacks that he did when he was in Pittsburgh. I don't know. But from a standpoint looking in, Bud Dupree hasn't impressed me much. And maybe they're trying to get Bud Dupree more prepared for the postseason. But here's where I have this love-hate relationship with my Titans. They can go into a game like Seattle, like the Colts, beat them. They can go into a game against Buffalo or Kansas City, or they can go into a Super Bowl contending team or a playoff team, and the Titans 9 times out of 10 usually come out on top. It's when the Titans face these little teams that they're supposed to win. That game against the Jets, we were supposed to win that game. There should have been no reason we are whole on paper. We are better than the Jets. If we faced the Jets tomorrow, we would beat them. I don't know if there's a certain thing, because they did it last year against Cincinnati. We went in against Cincinnati. We should have beat the Bengals. But we came in there acting like we just didn't want to play. And the Bengals wanted it more. And the Bengals came in with that aggression, and they beat us. The fact that we made Corey Davis, this is a redemption game for Corey Davis, because we decided not to re-sign him. We decided not to pick up that 5th-year option. So he goes to New York during the offseason, and he has a pretty damn good game against us. We made him look like $1,000,000. We made him look like an AJ Brown. We made a rookie quarterback on the Jets look like we made him look like an all pro quarterback. And those are unexcusable. I have no I mean, like, people can make excuses, and I know some Titan fans are making excuses like, well, we didn't have Julio, we didn't have AJ, we didn't have Bud Dupree, we didn't have them. That's no excuse. You still have Ryan Tannehill. You still have Derrick Henry. You still had a defense who, that defensive coordinator for the Titans, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, and I apologize on that but he is horrible. I mean, some of the play calls they have on defense, like, for example, when they're lined up, I noticed that the Titans corners are like 20 feet, almost 20 yards away or 10 yards away from the receiver. And no wonder why we're getting burnt like that. I mean, I don't know if it's the secondary coach situation or if it's a defensive coordinator situation or if it's a Mike Vrabel situation. But I noticed that against the Jets, and I'm like, why are we lined up 10 yards away? You know, when I played football, we were told to be right in their face from the start of the hike until the whistle. And I don't see that from the Titans right now. And we're going into a game against Jacksonville, which right now the Jacksonville Jaguars are not responding very well to Urban Meyer. I wouldn't be surprised if this Urban Meyer experience in Jacksonville only lasts for 1 year, because he's really not doing a very good job as a NFL head coach. But we all know, and any NFL fan knows this, when you face a division rival, no matter what their record is, they're going to come in there with a chip on their shoulder. And teams are coming in there against the Titans with a chip on their shoulder because the media has made like, oh, Derrick Henry stiff arming this guy in the face, and Derrick Henry's unstoppable, and blah, blah, blah. That paints a bullseye on your back. And I've noticed it against the Cardinals. I noticed it with the Seahawks. I noticed it with the Colts. And I noticed it with the Jets. They're coming in there with a lot of aggression. And when they take down Derrick Henry, they're getting pumped. Now, Derrick Henry is one of those running backs who takes a little bit during the game to get going. I don't know if that's by design by Derrick Henry to kind of wear the defense down. But it's a smart strategy, but when you're down, you kind of want to take over a game from first quarter all the way to the fourth. And I haven't seen the Titans do that yet this season. I haven't seen them go into a game and completely control it from start to finish. And this has been an experience with the Titans for the last, I would say, maybe 9-10 years. Well, since the last couple of years, they've had where they've been 9-7, and then to the playoffs, and then 9-7, then to the playoffs, and then they were 11-5 last year. They had this experience where they have a tendency to either be really good in the first half and then crumble in the second, or they struggle in the first half and then they come back in the second half. The Titans have got to find a middle in order to be that elite team that the media is trying to make them out to be before the season started. Oh my God, I got Julio Jones. You know, we're gonna be this elite team and stuff like that. Hold on now. I mean, that's painting a really big picture on art. That's painting a big bullseye on us. And right now, I know Kansas City Chiefs are struggling. They're kind of in a little struggle funk. But after Jacksonville, we got Buffalo at home. Now, I know we beat Buffalo last year at home on Monday Night Football, or whatever the game that was where we had to reschedule it because of the COVID. But Buffalo went to the AFC Championship last year. So we are going to be coming in there with a really big, Buffalo's going to be looking for some redemption. And then after Buffalo, we got Kansas City at home. And then after that, we have to go to Indianapolis to face the Colts. So while we have Jacksonville at Jacksonville, they beat us last year in Jacksonville, and we tied with them last year. So we have to, and we know Derrick Henry loves facing Jacksonville. He loves making the Jaguars his personal play toy, so to speak. I'm expecting the Titans to win this game. If I'm wrong, I'll tell you. I'll come on and admit if I'm wrong. But this one, I got a feeling. I don't think we're going to lose back-to-back games. I just don't see that happening. But that Titans defense, if they can make Trevor Lawrence look like a fucking all-pro quarterback. And if they do that, that's also a bad thing too, because you're making him look like an all-star quarterback, which Trevor Lawrence right now is not. And that could be the system that Urban Meyer's got in Jacksonville, or it's just the fact that he's not picking up the pro style like they all thought he would. I don't know what the injury report's going to be saying about AJ. I think AJ is not going to be playing this game. With that hamstring injury, I don't see it happening. But I don't know what they're going to do with Julio. I know they're taking their time with Julio because he was injured last year. So they're being very cautious with Julio, and they're being cautious with Bud Dupree. And I get it. And I know you want to have them toward later in the season when it starts to count. But these games in the early season also counts too. And the Titans have been dealing with a lot of injury. I don't know if their training staff is not doing a good job of taking care of these players, or if it's the fact that these players are not taking better care of themselves. Derrick Henry's the exception. You see his workout videos, he's the exception. But it's unexcusable for them to go into New York and let an 0-3 Jets team beat you in overtime. Period. There's no excusing it at all. Now if they were without Julio, AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry, then you have that. Then you can start making that excuse of, well, gee, we had nobody. But there is no excuse for that. I mean, the Jets know. And if you're a Jets fan, if you think that you're better than the Titans, you're delusional and you're fooling yourself. You know deep down that you know that your team got lucky week 4. I ain't sugarcoating it. You got lucky. But right now, though, I'm just looking at these next. We got to beat Jacksonville. We got to make sure we get that 2-0 in the AFC South division. I still believe we're going to win this division this year. I still firmly believe that. Now, what our record would be, I don't think. If we're playing the way we're playing now, we won't be 11-5 this year. If we keep playing the way we're playing. Yeah, the Titans were putting up a lot of scores and a lot of numbers last year, but I mean, Tannehill's putting up some numbers. It's just he's holding on to the ball for too long. Like week 2 and week 1 and 2, he was fumbling the ball when he got hit, and stupid he threw that stupid interception last game against the Colts, which was a boneheaded move. But majority of it, Tannehill is using what he's got, and it's not a lot, but he's using what he's got, and you got to give Tannehill credit on that. I mean, he's using some receivers that are not at the level of an AJ Brown or a Julio Jones, but he's putting up numbers, which is the only, like I said, the only problem I have right now with Tannehill is that his offensive line collapses when they're in a pass situation. And the Titans are better, way better when they do the play action, and that's what Derrick Henry comes in. Derrick Henry creates that play action because once the defense is focused on him, you get that play action, and usually the Titans are very good at delivering that. Tannehill is holding on to the ball. He's becoming like what I like to call a Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe, if y'all remember him, used to hold on to the football for too long. And Tannehill's taken some pretty stiff shots. And that shows a lot of toughness from Tannehill, but it also worries me because if the offensive line is not there to protect Tannehill and he keeps taking shots like this, eventually we could be talking about Tannehill being injured, and we don't really have a strong backup in the NFL. We don't really have that strong of a backup to come in there like when Tannehill came in with the Titans being Mariota's backup. We don't have that kind of backup. So if Tannehill goes down, then you definitely are going to have to rely on Derrick Henry even more. So it becomes a scary situation with them not really protecting Tannehill like they're supposed to. And it's not just all the offensive line's fault, it's Tannehill's. Like I said, holding on to the football for too long and not getting the ball out in a timely fashion. Last year, he was quicker with it. Taylor Lewan, I think mentally hasn't been the same since he's came back from that ACL injury. He had a really good game against the Colts, but I think that Tannehill is. I mean, I think Taylor Lewan is still kind of mentally. When you have an ACL injury, it's not the fact that it's hard to get back from an injury like that. It's mentally. Mentally, it's hard to get back from an injury like that. Because you start wondering, oh, well, will I still be the same player? Will I still be the same guy? Will I do this? Will I be slower? It mentally wears on you. In the NFL, they always say it's physical, but it's also mental too. And for any sport, period. I mean, you mentally start self-doubting yourself, and then that's when it becomes a chain of reaction. So Tannehill, with us not also having a good right tackle, you know what happened when we drafted Isaiah Wilson last year? He became a complete joke. So we got rid of him. We don't have Conklin no more. He went to Cleveland. And then we got rid of Dennis Kelly. And Dennis Kelly was a pretty good, solid backup as a tackle. And I kind of wish that we would have re-signed Dennis Kelly to that point because he was a good, solid backup. He wasn't a starter, but he knew his role, and he came in and he did his role well. When you have another offensive line being injured, you have like Roger Stafford, and you have Ben Jones having some injuries. Those are two big keys to your offensive line right there, especially Ben Jones, who's been our center for the last couple of years, and he's been pretty solid as our center. I'm looking at what the Titans are going to do this off season, and they did re-sign Javon Brown to a 1-year deal. I'm not sold on Javon Brown. I'm not sold on him because he's very injury prone. He's not on there solidly. Evans, I thought played a really his first 2 years. I was like, wow, okay, Evans is doing pretty good as a middle linebacker, but he's digressed instead of progressing. He's digressed, and I don't know if you want to pick up that 5th-year option on him. I do like David Long as a middle linebacker. He's a small, fast middle linebacker, and he's doing his thing. He's doing his job. But you got to look at your defense. You got to think, who do you want to bring back next year? What kind of trade value can you get with some of these guys? And that's the situation that you're at right now, because that defense was able to keep you in the game in the first half against the Jets, and then they just fell apart the second half. But then again, it's also hard when your defense does their job and the Titans are on there in the offense and they're not putting points on the board instead of field goals. So it kind of puts a – so I understand it from both points. It's kind of like it's a yin and yang situation. You can't have an offense without a defense. You can't have a defense without an offense. Now, we all know that there's been teams in the past that have went to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl just because of their defense, or they got in there because of their defense. We all know the Chicago Bears back then when they went against the Colts. They had Rex freaking Grossman as their quarterback. That Bears defense is what got them to the dance. But I think that another thing that we're missing, and I wish that we had another two-headed monster with Derrick Henry, because when Derrick Henry first got drafted, is when we made that trade and we got DeMarco Murray. And for those two seasons, it was like a two-headed monster with him and Derrick Henry. I wish that we had another running back in there like that can give Derrick Henry a little bit of rest. And I know Derrick Henry is in a great shape and everything like that, but a running back's time in the NFL, the clock's ticking. We got Derrick Henry at his prime right now. If there's any time to ever want a chance to make a Super Bowl run, this would be the chance to do it. Last year, the year before, last year, year before last year, this year, and next year are probably the prime years that you're going to have of Derrick Henry. And maybe another year after that. So you got about 5 or 6 years with Derrick Henry. You got to make it count, because this is at the point where when they get to the playoffs, that's what I'm expecting from Tannehill. I want to see, like I said last video I did, what I want to see from Tannehill is a guy who plays like he does during the season. I want to see that Tannehill in the playoffs, because if Tannehill can be the way he is in the regular season, in the playoffs, we can go deep. That game we had, the AFC Championship game we had with the Chiefs, when they started focusing on Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill was nonchalant. He wasn't around. He wasn't making the plays that he did during the season. And that is where the Titans needed Tannehill at the most. And I don't want Tannehill to be one of those quarterbacks that's like, oh, look at his stats during the regular season. Man, he's like off the charts. And then the postseason, he's, that's something I don't want to see. And I think that the last 2 years we've had where we went to the postseason, that's all we've seen from Tannehill is just nothing but him being a big flop. And, A lot of people got mad at. There were some Titan fans who really wanted Tom Brady with us last year, and we decided to re-sign Tannehill, and we gave him that big contract. And I'm like, and then Brady went to Tampa and went to got himself a Super Bowl ring. So you have to think, are we kicking ourselves in the butt by not signing Brady or bringing Brady here? Or do we think Tannehill really is that quarterback? And right now, I like Tannehill. He's a good guy. He does a lot of great things here in Nashville. Him and his wife both do. And Tannehill does really good numbers, and he's a tough dude. He's taking the hits. He knows how to scramble. He gets himself out of situations. But I'm not really sold on Tannehill to being the main guy here in Tennessee. And Tennessee's kind of had that little bit of that curse since Steve McNair. McNair leaves. We bring in Vince Young. And the Vince Young experience didn't work. And some of that had to do with Jeff Fisher. That was Jeff Fisher's fault as well. But then that experience don't work. And then we go with the Kerry Collins, and that experience doesn't work. And then we go with the Jake Locker experience, and Jake couldn't stay healthy. And then we brought in Matt Hasselback, and the not in the prime of his career, toward the tail end of his career, and then that doesn't work. And then we bring in Marcus Mariota, and for the first 2 seasons, we thought we found a gem, and then that injury with Mariota happens, and Mariota started to regress. And then we bring in Ryan Tannehill. So it's kind of that's what we've had here since now. We've kind of had that experience where Tannehill is not, I'm just not sold on. I honestly believe that in some cases, I believe we should have signed Brady last year. Now I know Brady would have only been Brady's talking about playing until he's 45. He's 44 now, but Brady is not showing any signs of struggling. He's not doing like what Ben Roethlisberger is doing in Pittsburgh right now. Ben should have retired last season. I just want to make sure that we ever had that opportunity to get a Super Bowl. These prime years are it. You got Julio Jones now. You have AJ Brown. You have that offense, but you need to fix that O-line. That O-line needs to be fixed. And our defense needs to be fixed. Because if we can't stop anybody, and we also can't protect Tannehill, then we're not going to go far in the season, and we're not going to go far in the postseason. It's really, when I saw us lose to the Jets, it was like it was a heart wrench. It was like a knife to the heart, because it's like, wow, we just lost to the freaking Jets. I mean, that's just in itself is embarrassing, and the team should be embarrassed. The players should be embarrassed. That embarrassment they felt last Sunday, they need to take that into this week, and they need to take it out on the Jaguars. That is what the Titans need to do. They need to rebalance, and I believe they will rebalance. I don't believe they're going to lose the 2 teams back to back, because then if you lose to the Jaguars, you're going into it on week 6, and you got Buffalo coming in, and then you got Kansas City coming in the week after in week 7. So then after that, you got to go to Indianapolis and face them in week 8. So then you're at a situation where you're like, you got to make some noise. You got to do it now because the Colts are struggling this season. The Texans are struggling. The Jags are struggling. That's why I believe we still will win this AFC South division. But at what cost? I don't want us to be like the NFC East last year where they were struggling and one team came into the playoffs with a 7-9 or 8-8 record. I mean, even if we still get to the playoffs, it's a victory, yes. But I don't know if I would be, if I was the Titans, I don't know if I'd be impressed with that. If I was J Rob and as a general manager, I don't know if I'd be impressed with that because I'm like, okay, we got to the playoffs 3 straight years, but look at our record. I paid all that money during the offseason. And some of the picks they made during the season, some of the draft picks have been questionable. J Rob's usually doing pretty good with that, but the last 2 years has been questionable. With Caleb Farley and then with Isaiah Wilson last year. And I mean, Christian Fulton's done great for us. I got no problem about it. That was a steal in the draft. Harold Landry was a steal in the draft. But I just don't know. And Jenkins, we signed Jenkins to come in as a corner. We got rid of Malcolm Butler. We got rid of Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson couldn't stay healthy. Malcolm Butler had a really good season last year. I thought he did a pretty good, solid job for us. Wish we would have been able to keep Butler, but I know how money is and cap situations, and it's just hard to do that. But we're a very young corner. We're a very young secondary team. Besides Kevin Byer as a free safety, we're a pretty young core in the corner position. And then that's the another underlining issue we have. We have a very young secondary. Very young secondary. There's going to be growing pains, obviously. They got to learn to gel. They got to learn to work together, and they will. I believe they'll get it together. So I've seen some Titan fans on Twitter, and I've seen some on Facebook, and I've seen some on other Titan shows that I watch here on YouTube, like A to Z Sports here in Nashville. They do a YouTube show, and I've seen some of their comments from some of their fans, and a lot of people aren't sold on Mike Vrabel as our coach. Now, Vrabel's made some good decisions, and he's also made some bad decisions. But I think any coach in the NFL can make good decisions, and they can make bad decisions. Vrabel is a player's coach. Vrabel is a guy who's going to tell you like it is. He comes in from that New England Patriot training. He has that Belichick training underneath him. Is he a good guy when he does a press conference? No, he's kind of an asshole, to be honest with you. But you're not paying him to be a nice guy. You're paying him to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. You're paying him to get stuff done. And for the last 2 seasons, the Titans have went to the playoffs. His first seasons, they were 9-7. We almost went to the playoffs that year. So Vrabel's a guy who will go out there. If you ever see him in training camp, he'll go out there. He'll mix it up with the players. He'll put the pads on and he'll hit with them. And he'll kick a turkey too if he ever saw one. I'm pretty sure he would. But Vrabel's. I think Vrabel's the guy for us. I mean, he's got very good inspirational speeches whenever they win a game. Like, if you ever go on their Titans YouTube channel, whenever they win a game, how he is But the one thing I will say, though, the Titans need to stop going with that whole underdog mentality because that mentality doesn't work anymore. You're not really an underdog now. You have Julio Jones, you have A.J. Brown, you have Derrick Henry, you have Ryan Tannehill. People aren't looking at you as underdogs anymore. You went to the playoffs the last 2 years. They're not looking at you as an underdog anymore. And we need to stop going with that mentality of being an underdog because now we're not. We won the AFC South Division twice. We're going to win it again this year. I'm still strongly behind that. And if I'm wrong, I'll tell you if I'm wrong later in the season. I'll come out here and I'll admit it. I'll come back and watch this video and be like, you know what? I was wrong. But right now, I know I'm not wrong about this because look at the Jags, look at the Colts, and look at the Texans right now. I'm surely 100. I'm 100% sure we're going to win the AFC South Division. Unless, knock on wood, Derrick Henry has an injury or Tannehill has an injury, I don't see them struggling. But if we don't continue to protect Tannehill and he keeps taking hits like that, we are going to be in trouble. We're going to be in trouble. Because we don't have that big, strong, solid backup as a quarterback. Should we go out there and get one? Yeah, we probably should. And I know some fans are thinking Stefan Gilmore, this guy released from the Patriots, and he's a veteran corner. Should we try to at least bring him in for the season? I think we should. We should look at it because Gilmore can also be a very good veteran for that young corners that we have, and it would be a good pickup if we decided to go that route. I don't know if J-Rob and them are going to go for it or if they're going to look for it or not. I don't know. It would be a good investment, I think, because Jannard Jenkins has not been a very good investment. I mean, he's no Malcolm Butler. You know, that's the thing. He's been getting burnt on some plays. Molden, one of our rookies, has been burnt on a lot of plays. Kevin Byer had an off year last year. He's still having an off. He still hasn't. He's having somewhat of an off year still right now. I mean, it's still early to tell. We're going into week 5. It's still early. But Kevin Byer is the heart and soul of that secondary. And he's a very good free safety. Last year he had an off year. So far he's not gotten off to a good start. And that may not be just him because, you know, we had Dan Pease once as our defensive coordinator, and Dan Pease retired last year. I don't know if it was him retiring or if it was just the fact that he didn't want to have to deal with Vrabel because Vrabel can be hard to deal with. I don't know. I'm not sure. But we definitely got to go into week 5. We got to make the statement. We got to go 2-0 in the AFC South because in week 8, we got to go back and face the Colts again. We got to make sure we got to quit splitting games with the AFC South. We can't split with the Jags anymore. We got to go in there and we got to take the AFC South by the horn, by the balls, and go in there and make a statement. Because you don't want to go back home to face the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, mostly the Bills. You don't want to go in there 2-3. You want to go at least in there 3-2. If we go in there 2-3, and we've lost to not only the Jets and the Jags, that's a bad confidence. That's not a confidence booster. That's a confidence deflate. But the Titans, if they're going to be this elite team that some people think that they are, or they have the They have the talent to be an elite team. They do. Do they have the right personnel? That's questionable. That's questionable. But I do believe that they have an opportunity. If they're going to be an elite team, you have to go in there and win the games when they count. You can't go in there and let a Jets team beat you. You can't go in there and let a Jaguars team beat you. You can't go in there and let a Texans team beat you. Now I know division rivals are tougher. Like I said earlier, I get it. They know you because they play you twice a year. So obviously they know you better than any other team you would face. But that's when you need to make it happen the most. Because let's say, for example, the Colts do pick it up, and the Colts and Titans have the same exact record after Week 18. They have the same record. But if we beat them twice in the AFC South division, if that makes us we won the division. So that gives us that extra boost. That's why these division games are very important. But that's my recap of Week 4. What I feel like the Titans can do to improve. I believe we're going to go into Jacksonville and we're going to get it done. I do. Hopefully, I'm not wrong about that because it would be a really heartbreaking thing for them to go into Jacksonville and just not. I know last year we went into Jacksonville and we lost, but I think we came in there a little too cocky, and Jacksonville took care of that situation. We don't want to do that again. You don't want to go down 0-2 going in home against Buffalo. You just don't want to do it. But anybody else that likes what I'm talking about with the Titans, like and subscribe. I would appreciate the love. And I'll be talking more about the Titans throughout the whole entire season. And when the season ends, I like to talk about the free agency and the draft. So, if you've subbed to me before when I was Kev's point of view, you know exactly what you're getting. If you haven't, I want to give it to you straight. I'm a straight shooter when it comes to my team.